Well, what's up, guys? This is Alby T here with Combat Culture Cast, and with me, as always, is my co-host Esteban. How you doing, man?
How's it going, man?
Cool. So tonight we are going to go over the most recent card from One Championship, and that is the One Fight Night 20, headlined by Janet Todd and Phetjeeja for the One's Women Atomweight Kickboxing Championship. And that was co-headlined by the One Championship, let's see, One Championship Atomweight Muay Thai Championship, with Allycia Rodrigues defending her title against Cristina Morales. Okay, so interesting about this card was this was actually, I think, on International Women's Day, so it was a all-female card. So kudos to One Championship for holding that card, showcasing all of their female talents, right? So we're going to jump right into the card here. And starting off was a atomweight Muay Thai bout between Teodoro Kirilova against Shir Cohen. Okay, now this was an interesting fight because Kirilova is on a 15 fight win streak. She's actually 14 and 0, not 15, 14 and 0. So she's undefeated going against Shir Cohen, who is 7 and 1. And the round started off hot with Kirilova taking advantage of her height, using a lot of teeps to keep Cohen at bay. Both women were trading a lot of hands early on, with Cohen getting the better of exchanges. She did have some really solid hands. Kirilova's right eye seemed to have busted open midway in round one as Cohen continued to swarm her. By the end of round one, I thought Cohen easily took the round just with the constant pressure. When
Definitely.
round two kicked in, Cohen kept on with the momentum with a ton of pressure, rocked Kirilova a couple times, and it didn't really seem like Kirilova was going to last long based on how things were going. At a point, though, Cohen was cut. It looked to be on top of her head from an elbow that started leaking pretty bad. So, at that point, I could have thought maybe, could have swayed the other way. Maybe the ref would have decided to stop it. But, Cohen just kept on the pressure. Eventually, the ref saw enough and decided to call it. And Cohen ends up winning by TKO in the second round, bringing her record to 7-8-1 and giving Kirilova her first defeat. What did you think of that fight?
That was a hell of a start to the entire event. Pretty exciting fight all around. And, I think like Cohen did a really great job at she found what works and just stuck to it. I think like very early in the first round, we kept seeing her throw that right hand and it was landing quite a bit. And, that's what ended up leading to the TKO in the second round. I think it was like a combination of like right hands and right elbows that were just like coming in hard.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see a trend here too, where more and more fighters are starting to better adapt to the one championship style. And I think more and more fighters are getting used to fighting in the smaller gloves and being able to navigate fighting with the smaller gloves. You know what I mean by that? It's like adjusting their defenses, right? Which leads to more exciting fights, but also longer fights. So, it'll be interesting to see as, talent continues to level up and really start, beefing up the roster, both in the men's and women's division. Um, the next fight was a catchweight Muay Thai fight, and that was between Lara Fernandez, who's the current WBC Muay Thai champion, against Yau Pui, who's been coming off pretty good momentum. I think something that stands out about Yau Pui is that she represents Hong Kong, which is a very small part of the world. So it's good to see them, finally on the world stage. And she has been coming off, I think I don't know how many wins she's come up, but I know that she recently came off a win off of a recent card and she was signed to a contract then, right? So, she's definitely on the up and up here. And she definitely made the most of the 9 minutes she had, coming off with a ton of aggression, right? Just moving forward, forward, forward. Fernandez was game though. She had a lot of counters. She stayed composed despite all the pressure that Yu Yao was bringing in. Pretty close round in the first. I'd have to give it to Yu Yao just based on the pressure alone. She continued off that trend in the second round, started off strong again. She did get cut, just from charging in. I think, she got hit with an elbow or a punch. And she started leaking pretty badly, but that really didn't stop her. much of the same in the second round. Fernandez with a lot of well-timed counters. Again, very composed, showing her experience. Yao eventually started showing signs of damage, had a big knot on her forehead.
Yeah.
Um, I think, you know, what I had written down is by the end of round two, I think Yao set the record for the most punches with about 200,000 punches thrown in that round.
Dude, she was the definition of 0 to 100. Like, right at the initial like, right off the, like, initial bell, dude, she just came forward, and, like, I have no idea what her cardio routine looks like, what her secret is, but, like, just to keep that pace throughout the entire fight was just super impressive.
Well, I think if Red Bull or the Energizer Bunny is looking for a new spokesperson, I think we found her, right?
Hit her up.
Because she has more gas than Chevron, right? She's the line, I know, but I wrote that down because that's how I felt. And as round three stood, Yu Yao fighting as if she just started off, you know, round one, right? No signs of fatigue. And I basically wrote down that Yu Yao was fighting Fernandez as Fernandez owed her money.
Yeah, just
You know,
relentless.
relentless coming down. Um, by the end of round three, judges decide Yu Yao wins by unanimous decision. Excellent showing, in my opinion, by both fighters. Even though Lara Fernandez did not end up taking the W, I thought she was really composed, despite the constant pressure. You know, she wasn't overwhelmed. So I'd be
Yeah, she had
excited.
really good spells too, she was very composed and, like, she even landed, like, a really nasty head kick. I think it was at
Mhm.
the end of the first round where I was like, "Oh, like, okay, maybe this is where the momentum shifts," but,
Yeah.
no, I mean, credit to Yau Pui, wow, just unbelievable.
Yeah, and I think, you know, looking at both of their records here, you know, Yu Yao post camp probably had a game plan where here you're fighting against a very well seasoned, experienced, high level fighter. You just got to pressure her down. You can't fight her fight, and you know it worked, right? So be very excited, you know, to see Yu Yao coming on back. You know, potentially as she continues to climb the ranks, and I'd be excited to see, you know, Fernandez come on back, you know, for another showing. Next fight is a strawweight Muay Thai bout, and this was between Ekaterina Barbie Vandaryeva against Martyna. I'll butcher this. Martyna Kierczynski.
Kierczynska?
Kierczynska.
Kierczynska, I think? I don't know,
Kierczynska.
man.
Yes, Martyna Kierczynska. Polish power. Okay. The reason why Martina stands out is because she came off a very excellent win in the last one championship card. And there was a lot of hype behind her, right? Just because
Oh,
I
yeah.
think she came off really strong, won in dominant fashion. So I think a lot of people are writing off Barbie. You know, I think a lot of people thought that this was going to be a shoe-in for Martina. You know, definitely felt that the hype machine was behind her, you know, during the pre-fight promos. But, you know, Vander Vandaryeva is, you know, definitely seasoned. She's had 19 wins and 7 losses, you know, so she's definitely doing it for quite some time. And she proved in this fight, you know, that she's not ready to be written off yet. So round one started off with Martina coming in with a lot of hype over her recent win against Wonder Girl. There we go. That's who she won against. She won against Wonder
Yeah.
Girl. Um, and she starts off with a very hard guard, you know, as Barbie was a bit more relaxed. You know, I noticed that, you know, Barbie throughout the whole fight had kind of a Philly shell
It
style,
was like a
right?
weird, like, MMA-esque kind of Philly shell, just, like,
Hands
a lot of heads
were
movement,
low.
hands down, come on, like, baiting her to come forward.
Yeah, and you know, I don't know if she has a Muay Thai or sorry, a boxing background, but you know, based on the way she's moving around, maybe she's been cross training a little bit. Um, there are a lot of boxing in round one, no clear advantage for either fighter. I think round one could have gone either way. In round two, you know, because Martina was giving up a bit of a height advantage, she was starting to see more success with leg kicks, made some adjustment there. Martina actually was dropped in the second round with about
Mhm.
45 seconds left. And I think because of that, you know, Barbie definitely won round two. You know, which was, you know, up until then, you know, pretty well contested round two, but I think that knockdown definitely, you know, leaned the scores over to Barbie. Round three, Martina definitely came out with a higher sense of urgency. She knew that she had to catch up on the scar cards due to the previous knockdown, but fortunately, she just wasn't able to land any significant shots. Barbie was ready for her and ended up taking the win by unanimous decision. And I wouldn't say stopping the hype train, but definitely do a wrench in some of the plans that I think the marketing team had. Yeah, what are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
definitely. I also wonder, because Martina, like, Kierczynska, she fought, like, what was it, 3 weeks ago?
Mhm.
It was so I was actually a little bit shocked when I had to, like, when I saw her on the card, I was like, "Wait, is that the same person?" I had to check because it struck me as odd that she was fighting so quickly, but, yeah, I think that hype train is not over, but it's definitely kind of a curveball for her.
Yeah, and she's still young in her career. I mean, she's had 6 fights total. This is her first defeat in her professional career. So we'll see her back, right? I think,
Oh, yeah.
she did really well against Wonder Girl. I think she was definitely the underdog in that fight. And, with this one, I mean, she didn't look bad. It's just that, she wasn't able to overcome, the game plan that, Barbie had. And, back to the drawing board, right? I think it's not the last set we've seen of her. All right. And moving on up to the card, and by the way, we are only covering the Muay Thai and kickboxing fights. I know there are some MMA cards on there, but neither Esteban or I are connoisseurs of the ground-based variety. So
Not in
unless
the least
fans
bit.
really, unless fans really want it, we're not gonna cover those because we know our place.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer
Um,
like, I I watched some of the grappling stuff, and it's really fascinating. I do wish I understood a little bit more about it, but, yeah, I prefer to get my ass kicked, like, one discipline at a time, and just throwing grappling into the mix is not in the plan for me.
well, here's a nice bridge that we can talk about for our viewers, right? It was a nice marriage between MMA and stand-up. Did you see that fight with Francis and Ngannou and Anthony
I saw the
Joshua?
highlights, but he got dropped pretty bad.
That's what everybody saw. That's what I saw too. I didn't watch the whole fight. I actually forgot that it was even happening. But yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think Ngannou's gonna go back to MMA? Do you think all his stock is gone? What are your thoughts?
No, I mean, I think, like, it's not like Anthony Joshua is a chump. So, he got dropped, sure, but he got dropped by, like, a pretty world-class boxer who's also massive. So, I think, like, the narrative had been because he had such a good showing against, Tyson Fury that I was like, "Oh, well, it coulda gone either way." Now it kinda, like, pumps the brakes on it a lot, but I think he might stick around with boxing. I think, like, he's getting better and, this is a small setback, but he'll continue on. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it right coursed everything. I think nobody really comes out a loser. I mean, obviously Anthony Joshua was prepared for this fight, seeing what happened with Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. I mean, like, he's probably one of the best heavyweights of this generation,
Yeah.
along with Tyson Fury. Um, and he definitely came prepared, right? I think he understood the assignment. I think with Tyson Fury, has the I don't want to say excuse, but Tyson Fury can get away with saying that he underestimated Ngannou, whereas Anthony Joshua is not going to have that same um, privilege, right? So I think it makes sense, right? I mean, you have a world class boxer against an MMA fighter who has good hands,
Yeah.
right? And it's got to go one way. I mean, what does that say about the boxing landscape if MMA fighter comes in and wipes out all of your top boxers, and
Yeah.
to Ngannou's point, I mean, like, he lost against one of the best, in a very different discipline, right? So, and he got paid. I think that's the most important thing. I think that's like the biggest victory is the moral victory is the fact that he got paid. He understood his value. He took his bag and left the UFC, and he's been doing good. Hopefully, other fighters will see that same type of success. Yeah, I don't think we've seen the last of Ngannou. You know, he might do another boxing fight for sure. I would imagine he's going to do an MMA fight in the PFL. I
Yeah.
mean, another big fight he could potentially do would be against Deontay Wilder, right? That would be the trifecta of the three heavyweights, right?
Yeah.
We'll see. I think there's money
I
to
mean,
be
if the
made
money's
there.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like they're dumping so much money into this that like you could never really tell. It's like, yeah, if the money's right, they keep going back to Saudi Arabia, like, yeah, let's do it.
And I think it would be absolutely wild if that fight did happen because Ngannou would be the only person to have fought all three. And the fact that those three did not all fight one another is insane to me. Okay, so we'll see what happens. But jumping back on track here, we're going to talk about the next fight first again, right? Because clearly we don't know anything about boxing, right? So we're going back to what we do know about, and that's going to be Muay Thai. And the next fight we're going to talk about is the catchweight Muay Thai fight. And this is between crowd favorite Jackie Buntan against Martine Michieletto. Right? Martine Michieletto is a very seasoned fighter. She's had 49 wins with 13 losses. Jackie Buntan has about half of that, pretty close to half, about 25-6. Right. So
Yeah.
maybe darn
I mean,
close to 200
Michieletto is
percent.
coming in from like a 15 white fight win streak, like a
Yeah.
6-year win streak. Like, dear God.
Yeah, so definitely a lot of stakes at hand. Jackie wants to climb back up the ranks and hopefully make her way to another title fight. Round one started off with Jackie looking really strong and sharp. She's definitely gone back to the drawing boards after her last fight. She had really sharp boxing here. Martine did a
Hmm.
really good job at keeping Jackie at bay with some kicks and teeps. Jackie does draw blood as there's some blood trickling down Martine's nose, and at the end of round one, I gave it slightly over to Jackie. Round two starts, Jackie gets caught as well by Martine, and now both fighters are bleeding. Both fighters landing very clean shots. I thought round two was a very even round with no clear winner. A lot of the same in round three, with Jackie coming off with the win via unanimous decision. I had Jackie winning as well, but I could have seen it gone the other way.
Yeah, I had it. It was a very, very slim margin for sure. I had Jackie winning as well. I think she did a really good job at just taking the fight to Michieletto. To Micheletto's credit, she was just counter striking beautifully. Like she did not let any strike just go unanswered. But I think when you kind of look at the damage and the aggression and just kind of that forward progress, it starts tilting a little bit more towards Jackie Bunton.
Yeah, I think a lot of the fight really married the earlier fight between Lara Fernandez and Yau Pui. But it was good to see that Jackie winning. Hopefully, she continues on this trajectory, and we'll see her in another title fight. So moving on to the championship fights. Okay, so the co-main event. And this was for the one atomweight Muay Thai championship with Allycia Hellen Rodrigues defending her title against Cristina Morales. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Alicia's last fight was against Semilia Sundell. Now it's
Hmm.
for Semilia's title. I felt Allycia did well in that fight, but I think the size difference was just a little bit too much. Um,
Yeah.
so, I think she's definitely in the weight division that she belongs. She came out looking strong. Um, well, round one started with Morales coming off with a lot of pressure against the champion. She knew that, as the challenger, she needed to put on a show, especially if it had gone to decision, right? What I had written down is that Allycia is a slow starter. She really embodies that Muay Thai style where round one and two, you're kind of feeling your opponent and she gets like faster and stronger as times goes on. And that was definitely the case, with her fight against Janet Todd when she won the title from Janet Todd.
Yeah.
So, I wasn't too worried for Allycia in round one. A lot of round one really was offense from Morales. Rodrigues had some counters, but, again, slow starter. Round two, a lot of the same with Allycia being a little more significant and intentional with her counters. I thought it was, again, a very close round with Allycia starting to gain momentum. No clear winner, in my opinion, in round two. Round three came along. I started noticing Allycia really stepping on the gas a little bit, a lot sharper with her counters, came with a lot of switch kicks. She would backstep, baiting Morales in, and then coming back with a switch kick.
Yeah,
And
that
also
body
did
kick was landing.
she started finding the mark on that, and she was also doing a really good job of stuffing Morales every time Morales tried to engage in clinch. Again, I thought it was a pretty close round with the the momentum, starting to fall more on Allycia Rodriguez's side. As round four came on, Morales wasn't really letting up yet. She definitely still had more output, but Rodrigues was starting to pick up her offense as well. Um, Things started shifting near the middle of round four as Rodrigues started stalking down Morales, really going for the body. I think by the end of round four, Morales was starting to fade a little bit, whereas Rodrigues was getting stronger. Um, Round five came around. I wrote down that it was a very competitive round. Morales definitely did show a high sense of urgency as a challenger. Probably understood that the scorecards were really close. Allycia had some really nasty body kicks in the round that I think did score pretty significantly. Allycia wins and retains by unanimous decision. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. What I really like, one of the first things I noticed about Allycia was that like she's just so composed and there is no wasted movement in she has this like very laid back, just like Thai marching, just swaying, like I think she was also very much geared for a 5 round fight.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw that when you kind of see the tipping point towards the end of the third round, beginning of the fourth, where yeah, Morales starts fading and like her output was still very high, but her strikes just didn't have the same oomph that you start seeing
Yeah.
Rodrigues strikes have. And then when you combine that with Rodrigues just being more effective in the clinch, every time Morales would spring forward, she would kind of either get a strike in and then clinch right away. So yeah, I think very incredible performance from Rodrigues, and yeah, totally agree with the judges there.
Yeah, I agree. I think Rodrigues is really fun to watch, especially if you have an appreciation for Muay Thai, just because she really does embody that Muay Thai style where she has a slow starter, but very composed, like you said, no wasted movements. And every single strike is a very intentional and impactful strike. And I think that's part of the reason why it's so fun watching her because everything she does is calculated. Um, and I think, if it wasn't really for that much of a significant size difference, I mean, she could have been a dual champion, right? But
Yeah,
Smilia is just too strong, too big,
too tall. Yeah,
too tall. But Allycia is definitely the queen of the Atomweight Muay Thai division right now. I think she's beaten Janet Todd for the title. And did she beat Janet Todd for a title or she defended? I think it was maybe was it I know she beat Stamp for the title initially, and I think she beat
yeah,
Janet Todd. Yeah, so
yeah. She beat Janet Todd in 2023.
yeah, I think that may have been for Janet Todd was the interim champion when
Mm.
Lisa Rodriguez was on mat leave. That's right.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
She came back after having a baby and won that. Yeah.
one, won
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
bet.
The unification title. Yeah. So
Badass.
she's very badass. I'm a huge fan of Alicia Rodriguez. So I look forward to her continue rise. I mean,
She's 25 too, so there's gonna be a lot of her to go.
she's got a lot of mileage, and then we can talk about potential showdown down the road after we cover this next fight here, which is the main event, and that is the one atomweight kickboxing champion unification bout between current champion Janet Todd and Phetjeeja, who's the interim champion. Now, this was an interesting fight for several reasons. Phetjeeja has been on the up and up. I mean, she's been in the circuit for a very long time. I mean, she has a very impressive record of 207 wins and 6 losses.
It just
Okay.
sounds absurd. Yeah.
She's been fighting for a very long time. She's fought Stamp several times throughout her career. I'm okay, take that back. She's fought Stamp before in her career. Actually, I don't even know
Yeah.
if she did. Okay. Pachija has a record of 207 wins with 6 losses, an incredible record. She's definitely coming in with a lot of momentum. And Janet Todd was let's see here. And Janet Todd had come out saying this was going to be her last fight,
Last fight.
right? So you definitely have like the up and comer against the sympathetic favorite, right? Janet Todd has always been a really good ambassador for women's martial arts, and she's been a great role model for many. So this was a hard fight to find a favorite. So we jump into it with round one of the 5 round championship fight with not a whole lot of significant strikes thrown. Both fighters are feeling one another out, with Phetjeeja establishing her boxing. And this was a kickboxing match. Round two, both fighters started off with a faster pace, with both fighters throwing in a higher volume of shots. Phetjeeja for the most part was on the offensive, but Todd didn't back down and was countering effectively. I thought it was a pretty close round in round two, with Phetjeeja slightly edging over Janet
Hmm.
Todd. Things started picking up again in round three with a very active start with a high volume of shots thrown for both fighters. Both fighters knew what was at stake here. It was a good back and forth, with Phetjeeja doing most of the offensive and Janet Todd again with a lot of the counters. Round four, both fighters again kicked it up another gear as we entered championship rounds. Neither fighters was slowing down or showing bits of fatigue. Uh, until you get to the middle of the round, it just seems that Phetjeeja's gas tank was just a little bit too much for Todd, who seemed to have been fading a little bit. Right. So
Yeah.
by the end of round four, I did have Phetjeeja leading the scorecards just based on the amount of significant strikes and also the amount of aggression that she was doing. And in round five, high volume of kicks to start the round from both fighters. There was one point where Todd missed a kick and was caught with the punch that did drop her.
Yeah.
Right. And if it was a close score before that, I think that in itself, was really
That's
the
what sealed.
pin. That was, yeah. And Phetjeeja would go on, to win and unify the Atomweight Kickboxing Champion. She won by unanimous decision. They had her give a speech. After that, Janet Todd was interviewed and she formally retires. She places her gloves down the ring and, hats off to Janet Todd for an incredible career. I don't think this is the last we've seen of her, maybe as an active fighter, but I think we'll definitely see her involved with, women's Muay Thai in some capacity as the sport continues to grow. Before we get on to the aftermath of the card here, what were your thoughts on the fight?
No, it was a really exciting fight. I think early on you could start seeing how things would turn out with just we've talked about Phetjeeja before in other episodes, and she does what she does best, which is just overwhelm your opponent. In my notes, I don't know what I was thinking, but I wrote like she's like a runaway train. It just like picks up speed as the fight goes on to the point where like you can't like she's just impossible to stop and she just keeps going and going and going. One thing I noticed as well is that she has incredible hands. I think like aside from Muay Thai and kickboxing, she also has done just some like regular boxing. But she was leaning a little bit more on her kicks that fight, especially towards the body. So as terrifying as it may be, like she is like diversifying her strikes and getting even better. So no, I really, really great fight.
Yeah.
Really impressed by her, and, like, part of me was very much rooting for Janet Todd because you want somebody to, like, end on top, especially when someone who's been, like, so instrumental at the growth of women's, um, you know, martial arts. But, yeah, this felt very much like a changing of the guard almost.
Yeah, and I think that's really well put, and I'm kind of torn at times because, everybody wants to root for the sympathetic favorite, but also at the same time, um, I'm okay with how things ended because you always want to leave it in the hands of someone who'd carry that banner, right? Like you say, the changing of the guard, if you win your last fight, what does that say about, the folks who are coming after you? You want to leave it in good hands, right? And I think Phetjeeja is definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with, in the years to come.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I honestly can't think of too many contenders in her weight class that I would see giving her trouble. And coming off of that, I think we have to start thinking about where are some potential matchups for her in the future. I think the easy one is her and Allycia Rodrigues, right? An
That would be a banger.
eventual
Oh,
showdown
yeah.
between the two. Um, there were little teases with her and Stan Fairtex. I
Yeah,
don't know what Phetjeeja's ground game is, but that could be a money fight, right? So, I'd be curious to see how they're gonna navigate, Phetjeeja's fights, coming up, right? Because I think she's riding off a lot of momentum. She's won her last few fights in very
very
dominant,
decisively. Yeah.
very decisively, very dominant. So, I'm curious to see, how they're gonna handle this. Um, and like I mentioned earlier, I think Janet Todd we'll see her again, probably in some ambassador role or maybe as one of the coaches, right? I think her contributions, she still has a lot more to contribute. Fairly certain we'll see her in Janet Buntan's corner the next time we see her,
Yeah.
in the ring. So that was the card. That was one championships, one fight night. I thought it was an excellent card with a lot of, excellent matchups, action packed. Um, a lot of star making performances, with Phetjeeja coming off a very dominant win, Allycia Rodrigues as well. I thought Jackie Buntan, Yau Pui, Lara Fernandez, most of the fighters who fought on the card, I thought did really well. With that said, I want to briefly go over the upcoming card that Esteban and I is going to be covering, and that's going to be the One Championship One Friday Fights 58 headline by Superbond against Murat Gregorian. This is going to be their third match within their career, second in one championship, right? So that one outside of one didn't count. But the interesting about this fight is that this is going to be for the interim featherweight kickboxing world champion, the title that is currently held by Chingiz Alazov. Now, I haven't read too much into this, but I did see that there were some rumors that Chingiz is trying to get out of his contract. And
Oh,
yeah, for one reason or another, hasn't happened yet. So while they're trying to work that out, they're gonna have Superbond go against Murat or Dorian, two very worthy contenders for the featherweight interim title, and hopefully if things work out, we'll have Chingiz unify the titles against whomever comes out winning this one. So that's gonna be a main event for that title. Two other fights that's gonna be on the card is Jonathan DeBella is going to be defending his strawweight kickboxing world champion against a strawweight Muay Thai world champion, Prajanchai PK Sanchai. So that's going to be a really interesting fight. Prajanchai could potentially be a dual sport champion. We'll see. He just came off his win against Joseph Lasori when he unified the title on the last card. So this will be exciting to see. And a surprising fight is going to be Nam O coming back from his most recent fight with Nico Carrillo against Kulabdam Storjor Peak Utai from Thailand. Not familiar with that fighter, but I don't know. I think it's a little soon for Nango to come back after the KO loss. What do you think?
yeah, and I mean they've both. Yeah, I think it's a little bit soon. I've seen Kulabdam fight in some of the Friday night fights, and he also has very, very heavy hands. So interested to see how his chin has healed and
Yeah.
see if like, come on, like just please don't get knocked out again.
I'm actually looking at his record right now, at least with one. He's won his last three fights via KO, TKO and KO.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see. I'm a big
dude
fan of
hits hard.
Nano. He is getting up there in age, and his last two fights he's lost via KO or TKO. So, but don't write him off. We'll see. I'm a big fan of his. I'm rooting for him. And that's gonna be it. I think they're gonna continue to announce fights as we go on. Esteban and I is gonna be back, to cover that card here. But until then, Esteban, any leaving thoughts?
No, no thoughts, just loved all the fights. And also it was just a really meaningful event. If you think about how women weren't allowed to fight in Lumpinee up to like not that long ago, and then you have an all women card. It's pretty great. Love to see it.
we've definitely come a long way, and I think One Championship, has done a really good job at promoting women's martial arts, both striking and mixed martial arts, right? So, like you said, hopefully, we'll continue to see that trend. Hopefully, we'll continue to see women be showcased, on the highest platform. And, we're excited to see, the fights that are going to be coming up on April 5th, But until then, this is Alby T signing off for Esteban and I for the Combat Culture Cast. See you guys.
Yeah.